please give this channel a chance, and please give my other channels a chance. And yeah, there's a lot to be said here, and I guess it's not too much to exaggerate that losing this particular actor, we have literally lost a big chunk of Hollywood history. And I do consider myself a bit of a cinema expert and Hollywood historian, but without delay, let us get into the very long but interesting life of and parts of cinema. He had some interesting roles in the 1960s as a television actor, and then migrated to be more full-blown movie stars. He was part of George Lucas's very early and interesting experimental film, THX, which is actually linked to Star Wars history because many things in THX, which unfortunately were cut for the theatrical cut, do give a preview of Lucas's ideas for Star Wars. So in a weird way, Robert Duvall was literally there for the pre-history of Star Wars. Very fascinating film, although unfortunately not seen as much as Star Wars, but there we are. He also followed up, of course, with iconic roles in Apocalypse Now, just to name one massive role in the 1970s. But of course, we can't overlook the iconic Godfather Part 1 and 2, where he played Tom, and also was in a couple of the conversation, although not credited for the role. Also continuing a lot of good work in the 1980s with Sean Penn in Colors. And I forgot to mention, oh yeah, he was also classmates. Shows you the time period with Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman. Apparently he was Gene Hackman's roommate for a while. Interesting. Unfortunately, we lost him very recently. So just in a ton of productions. And since I cover true crime and Scientology, I can't, unfortunately, skip over his very odd connections, which are pretty persistent with Tom Cruise and Days of Thunder, and much later, decades later, on Jack Reacher, which was not that good or faithful to the novels, but an interesting work. He also was with Scientologist John Travolta in A Civil Action. Quite a lot of Scientology. And although Robert was very notorious for being a conservative, he did do quite a few liberal roles. I mean, he played Stalin, apparently. Didn't know that. But obviously, perhaps his most iconic role will probably be Falling Down, a film that's been revisited and reanalyzed from many different angles as a classic of 1990 cinema and a very weird and odd political statement by Joel Schumacher. Definitely a movie to see. Not clear what they were up to, but very, very interesting. So, quite literally a man who dominated so many different genres, did a Schwarzenegger film, drama, also had time to do theater, as well as television, so quite a lot. Early 2000s, still doing a lot of roles, even if more minor, right? Gone in 60 Seconds with Nick Cage, Secondhand Lines, which I've heard many good things about, but I never had time to see it. Well, no more excuses. Obviously, by the 2010s, started to slow down a little bit, but still an incredible CV. I mean, these roles are just spanning so long over so many different time periods. He appeared on Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, Lucas's film, the Coppola classics of the 1970s. Again, 1980s, not probably his peak period, but still in a lot of interesting roles. The 1990s seemed to be really where he had his high point with dramatic, very, very critically praised roles in The Apostle, Civil Action, and even Sling Blade. I don't remember him. I saw Sling Blade a while ago. Apparently he was in that film as well. By all accounts, a very memorable, long career. He was also in some other films that he didn't quite get into, but he could have been a bigger part of film history. Not that this is a modest amount. He was almost in 7, if you can believe that, and he spoke about this, that he almost had a role in 7. He didn't specify, but apparently he lucked out because Fincher is notorious for many takes, and he was very critical of Fincher and Kubrick for having too many takes, apparently being disrespectful to actors, so on and so forth. So quite an interesting man. Very, very long career. I don't agree with the man's politics, but you got to give him there. He was very respectable and consistent, very pro-conservative, anti-liberal, anti-communist, but also didn't inflate his ego or resume or join the now, unfortunately, growing band of online Nazis that seems to have taken over the Republican Party. For instance, when people try to pump up his war record, he was like, no, I mean, I did serve, but wasn't very heroic. Couldn't even do very well at the military. And his parents were disappointed he didn't continue to a military career because his family background, yes, is with Robert E. Lee. Yes, he's a relative of Robert E. Lee. Instead, he studied acting under the GI Bill and, as we all know, put in a lot of time and effort, odd jobs, but eventually landed a few roles in theater and slowly built up his career. So a lot to work through. And yeah, looking back on it, the Days of Thunder, Tom Cruise, Scientology link is also pretty crazy because to my knowledge, he actually was in a cult. The Christian Science Cult, but as he says, he didn't really attend. Apparently a passive member. And to my knowledge, it's not any of his roles. In fact, the Apostle, my memory, it's very critical of cultism, but that is my memory, which could be very shaky. I'm concentrating on the movies, but he also had a huge impact on television, being in many award-winning series and TV shows. But again, I'm trying to be concise. I'll probably have to do a bigger breakdown down the road. It's a lot. It's a lot. Although he's not usually celebrated as a major actor, right, of the 70s or 80s, he does deserve a place. Usually that's reserved for Robert De Niro, Dustin Hoffman, of course, Al Pacino, and people like that. But Robert was up there. Again, he didn't quite fit in either way. He wasn't a leading man with, quote, movie star good looks. But he also wasn't a straightforward character actor who did every single role in the book. He had a variety of roles, but he had a certain range he kept to, but he was very good at it. So, again, if you just study American films at all, almost any decade, 70s, 80s, 90s, he's going to appear, both big roles and small roles. So we've lost a lot. We lost a lot. So a lot to criticize, a lot to be said about the man. And you can definitely fault certain performances, which were, in retrospect, bizarre. But hugely successful, admired, won many accolades. But again, don't want to shy away. He was a very conservative man, very upfront. Although, again, I think his legacy will be definitely debated among conservatives because they've made this a weird mythology where conservatives and Republicans can't find work. Despite him, Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Bruce Willis, all those rich Republicans somehow were struggling in Hollywood with their millions and mansions. Anyway, a man of his time period, but also our time period. So in ways, it's unfortunately brutal to say this, but it's nice that he died when he did, not being part of the AI slop, which is now turning older actors into these weird new mechanicized constructs for, who knows, Elon Musk's Twitter. But also not exactly classic actor either. He actually studied under Meisner, who, if you know acting history, was considered an innovator and revolutionary. So quite a puzzling man on many grounds. Not a diehard reactionary all the way, but also definitely not woke liberal activist. Very puzzling man, filled with many contradictions and weird turns in his career. But whatever else we can say about the man, he'll be greatly missed. It is unfortunately becoming now normal. We're losing so many icons. Robert Redford, Val Kilmer. Now, unfortunately, we have to add Robert Duvall, star of stage, screen, cinema, and television. Gone now, but he will be remembered for quite some time. I mean, I feel much closer to Gene Hackman because of his politics and his cultural significance with Superman, but if you want to be serious about cinema and becoming an actor or director, his work is really critical. It has left its mark. It's probably been forgotten now, unfortunately, by many people, but it's there. It's there. It's a treasure trove, but it's a very puzzling treasure. And there we are. Robert Duvall, R.I.P.